this time. So welcome to everyone who's joined Jared and I here on the live, and welcome if you're watching on the replay. Thank you for registering. Thank you for giving us your time, because time is of the essence. Time is pulled in every direction for us these days. So the fact that you choose to be with us, I really appreciate, and we want this to be of value for you. So type in the chat, send us messages, see what you think. So hang on, welcome Michelle. So what we're going to be talking about today is this. So we talk about movement snacks. So movement snacks is part of what I do in the work I do with clients. It's what Jared does with his clients, and it's something that we also co-created. So first of all, I would like to welcome Jared, and thank you for being here, my friend. And can you just give a brief introduction in case there are some people who are joining today who are new to you and what you do?
Thank you. Yeah. So I'm a health coach, and I've kind of shifted from 20 years ago. I started in personal training, and the goal was thinking that if I could build a strong body, then I would feel strong. And that went through many iterations of training in the gym, training with kettlebells, training with gymnastics. And as I went through all these things, I realized that there was a big disconnection between health and fitness. And a lot of the high level elite athletes that I was seeing, including myself, were strong, could do one arm pull-ups, one arm handstands, and yet there was a disconnect in their body that they didn't feel well and that they had pain all over. And for the past 20 years, working on more than that, working to fix and heal myself. Then once I acquired those skills through various teachers, wanted to pass that on, because I understood very deeply how when we don't feel good in our bodies, it reflects to how we show up in life and how we experience life. And once I knew that my body could heal and that I found a way to do that, I wanted to yell it from the rooftops, because I thought everybody wanted it as well. And my goal and my mission has been to show people, to kind of cut through the bullshit and show people what it is to heal, because our industry is filled with so many gimmicks and so many things that don't work and don't last. And so that's what brings me here, helping bodies, helping people move better and feel better.
No, wonderful. And you've helped me. I mean, you've helped me through, you helped me navigate perimenopause and come through. And also, Jared and I come at these things from completely different backgrounds. So while Jared was like trying to be a bodybuilder, he was in the gym doing sets and reps. I was making avant-garde abstract cinema. And you may think, well, what the hell has that got to do with movement snacks or health and movement now? And as Jared said, like this kind of industry, this fitness industry, health industry, like I find it the weirdest thing in the world, because it's full of people who, people are very judgy. They're not very nice to each other. And it's a real gathering of people who have some kind of different ideas, which is, I'm all for exploring everything. But there was, coming from kind of creative industries and a creative background, there was a complete lack of creativity in the approach and the kind of holistic sphere of like, there are so many ways to like navigate your own path and to meet yourself where you're at. And Jared and I are both real fans of just like not really suffering that much. Sure. And the thing that I can say that with confidence and know it is because we choose not to. We can. Like we've both done ridiculous trainings. Like, I mean, Jared, like if you want to just give an example of like, I mean, I trained with the Yamakasi and from the parkour world. So, an idea of a warm-up would be 20 minutes of quadrupedal movement backwards. And 20 minutes of backwards quadrupedal. So this is crawling on the floor, knees off the ground. You're not allowed to stand up. That's the warm-up before you start training. And then the cool down was also, so it's basically, it was like 2 hours of strength and conditioning, full on, insane, and doing things that scared the crap out of you and made you want to cry. So I have a really strong mental game. I can push through, but that doesn't always serve me. So Jared, just for comedy's sake, give an example of like one of your crazy trainers, because you've trained with a lot of elite movers as well.
Yeah, the two that come to mind for me was one, training for Ironman when I was in my early 20s, and just seeing the amount of time spent on the pavement, like running and cycling and swimming, and the hours that I would put in and how I would feel. And then also I trained with Ido Portal, who's a famous movement coach. He worked with Conor McGregor. And he was kind of coming up actually as the time like CrossFit was really making its boom as well. There was like this and we would train for 8 hours a day, going between handstands, acrobatics, gymnastics, back squats. You would train all day for 8 hours, and then you'd box, and then you'd wake up the next day and do it again and do it again and do it again. And I just saw not only the athletes that trained with us, but those that came from CrossFit, how that like they were these elite athletes, but when it came to being in life, they were always in pain. They were always tired. They were always jumping to black coffee and chocolate and like using stimulants because they were so beat up and broken down. So yeah, like I've been there, I've seen it. I can hang with them, and I don't want to do it.
Cool. So thank you. Yeah. I mean, I call these people like the beautiful crazies, and they have a place. And sometimes maybe it's for us to kind of test the water and dip our toe in and go, oh, hang on. I want to do life as well. I'm not about life. I'm not the 0.00001% who are the Olympians or the athletes. It's not my identity. I have a bigger purpose in life. I have other things to do, and life can be more complete. So where does this all connect to movement snacks? So, and so Jared, can you just share for people, like, so what are movement snacks in their essence?
So movement snacks are bite-sized movements that allow you to explore and move your bodies in ways that you might not do in your everyday life or in your everyday sport. So like we've been asked to be in a book now called Born to Run, which is Born to Run 2, which is a bunch of crazy endurance runners and people who just run, and they just go linear in one direction, but they don't train in all these other ways. We have a spine that needs to be mobilized. We have hips that move in different directions, shoulders that brachiate. Like we move in these directions, but when we actually see what we've created in life, it's very linear and it's very stuck. People either stand or they sit, and it's like very in this direction, but they're not moving the hips in all the ways that we designed. And I learned this early on. If you don't use it, you lose it. Like our body, as a way of efficiency, will start taking away things from you if you don't need it. So we created movement snacks as these bite-sized movements that a person can do to explore their body and feel good and stay strong.
Absolutely. So there's this extreme that we both see. So we both kind of alluded to some of our own experiences and friends that we know. And I still hang out with people who are the beautiful crazies who want to do that extreme kind of training. And that's their path, that's their wiring. And what I'm also seeing as both myself, like how I'm aging, I'm 52, and how other people around me are aging, is a lot of the time people use movement as a kind of escapism. There's this kind of like physical bypass. And whilst movement heals, and there's also a place for, sorry, I just got distracted from the messages. So there's this place where you don't want to be doing the same thing all the time, but there's this thing that you love doing. So runners love to runners love to run, lifters love to lift. But if you're spending all your energy, and your body, as Jared said, we're a use it or lose it system, but it also means we're a kind of find it, use it, keep it system. We can find it again, even if it's lost. So I can go through phases where I've got lots of pull-ups, like 9 pull-ups. And then I go for a year where like, oh, I've just been in this big handstand project. So I'm like, I've only got like 1 pull-up. It's like, did I suddenly become weak? No, I'm just use it or lose it. Nothing special, nothing different. That's my baseline. I can always pop out 10 push-ups because my life involves lots of pushing, lots of quadrupedy, lots of kind of ground flow. But it really changes what we can do part of the time. So we kind of describe movement snacks sometimes as an adaptogen for the body. So Jared, can you share what that is? Some people may be familiar with the term, other people maybe don't. What the hell are they talking about? So can you just go into that a little bit?
If you are in the health industry or the health field or follow any of that stuff, adaptogens is something that has come out as a way to help somebody balance. So maybe if somebody's dealing with adrenal fatigue or nervous system stuff, there's herbs that are adaptogens, meaning if you're high, like if you're over energized, the herb, the adaptogen, will bring you down to balance. And if you're really low and lethargic and don't have energy, the adaptogen will bring you up. So it helps you adapt whether you're high or low to bring you into a balanced state. And so we believe that movement snacks is the same way. And that's why we created it. And the idea was like, you only need 10 minutes, right, Julie? Like, I think from the training you've seen and the people you've dealt with, it's like people have this all or nothing mentality, right? Like either I'm going to go to the gym for an hour and crush it, or I'm not going to go. And we wanted to create something that was tangible, that a person could approach gently and not feel such resistance to doing, because they're fun, they're easy, it doesn't require a lot. And we have these systems in place that help people. And you talk about that a lot with like red, yellow, green, and kind of using it as a way to test your body for the day. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. So the reason I kind of titled this masterclass about like why movement snacks are really an essential tool for a health first approach is that they allow you to take inventory. Because if you don't know where your starting point is, how can you then make an informed decision about what you should do or where you should go? So you have to kind of assess the conditions. If you were going surfing, you wouldn't put blinkers on and go out without checking the conditions. Same for, I live in America, but I'm from the UK. So every summer there's the 10 Tours expedition on Dartmoor, where loads of people go out and they do these big hikes across these hills, across the moorland, like really barren moorland. It's where the Marines train. And people are getting rescued all the time. It's like, oh, they're being rescued from the 10 Tours. Oh, the helicopters are in on Dartmoor. And it's like, did you not check the weather? Did you not know there's a storm coming in? Oh, and you didn't train and you didn't prepare for it. So maybe, for example, like if I'm going surfing, I know my abilities. I like it really like 3 to 4 foot, nice and gentle, fat waves. But if I go to the beach and I see like, oh shit, it's 6-7 foot overhead and smashing down, I have no business being in that environment. I have no business putting myself into the eye of the storm. And what some people do is there's this sense of, I have to be stoic, I have to be disciplined, I have to turn up regardless. And this kind of dogmatic mindset allows, like, kind of gives people the green light to go and do stuff that they have kind of no business doing. So the health first approach, why movement snacks kind of goes into that, and we'll go into this in more detail now, is that you can really take inventory. These 10 minutes of movement. So movement begets more movement for the majority of the time. So when you start to do your movement snacks, a lot of the time you may start and you're like, okay, great. I woke up and I've got loads of energy and I want to do this thing. And so you do it and then you're even more energized. This is that adaptogenic thing where like, I'm feeling good. It's a good day. But it may be a day where you're like, didn't sleep particularly well. Got a lot of stress happening. I have to do that thing, that's still on my mind. And I ate kind of shitty food yesterday because I was caught up in this thing and and I'm pulled here and there. And then, you know, so I know people in that position, then they're like, yeah, but I've got my marathon training. Like, oh, and how's that going? Oh, my knees hurt. I'm not sleeping. I'm getting fat. I'm getting tired. Like, ugh. And it's sort of like, well, not every day is the day to push through. And this is where I think people are so confused with these extreme messages of all or nothing, of, well, what if, you did something today? Because the 1% days add up. These 1 to 10% days are going to make more difference than the 2 extreme days that you maybe don't do consistently. So, Jared, can you talk a little bit about, so that's why kind of movement snacks, I believe, is a really essential tool if we want this kind of health first approach. So what for you as a health coach is health? Because people come to us all the time and they'll say, but I'm really healthy. I eat healthy. I train in a healthy way. I live healthy. What is your version of health? What does it look like? What does it feel like?
So in one of my PDFs, I have health is a combination of, so a lack of injuries and sickness. It's great sleep, good digestion, healthy appearing skin, a sharp mind, strong bones, lean muscles, overall happiness and a sense of purpose. So some markers of health. You have great energy all day. You sleep deeply and feel refreshed upon waking. You maintain lean body mass and a warm body. A lot of people have a cold body. And when I do my nutrition coaching, I have them test their body temperature and pulse, because it's a great read for how our metabolism is doing. And you can see patterns over time. So a lot of people actually have colder bodies than they should. They come in at 96.6 or 95.5.
What I was at.
So yeah, so their bodies are cold, and that's your body giving you the sign that you're under chronic stress, that you've been under stress, and that you're not supporting yourself. So a warm body, your hair shines and your skin radiates, you feel happy, you have a healthy libido, you have great digestion, you are free of sickness and disease, and you can eat well without working out for hours and hours every day. So those are some basic ones. And then I have a health checklist that I go into, which kind of follows a similar thing. And those are some good things to kind of check into to see if what you're doing is actually supporting health or taking you further away from health. Because the fitness industry wants to tell you that to be fit is to be healthy. But like you said, we know that that's not true. And a lot of the fittest people are actually the most unhealthy. And I do body work, so it's one of the things that I've been taught. And my teacher taught me that we should never be in pain and we shouldn't really be sore. And if we are, something internal, our digestion or our system is not functioning properly. And that is a problem. And so we have to see if we're in pain, if we're dealing with injuries, if our sleep is good. We talked about healthy. Wait, can you hear that?
Yeah. Your house going to blow up.
Let me grab that 1 second. Sorry.
So, to basically resonate with that. So last week I was staying with a friend of mine and one of my coaches, Mary Beth Ganjemi, and she's on a kind of big kettlebell swing mission at the moment. So she was like, oh, we're doing 300 swings a day. And I was like, I don't do like 300 swings a day. Like, that's a lot for me. But I was open to it. So I tried it and I wasn't sore ever on any of those days. And that for me, and the reason I'm sharing that is not that it's really just to say that when you have health, you can do these things. And I normalized at one point in my life that I woke up like my ankles, I was like the Tin Man. I would kind of walk on my heels to the bathroom. It was kind of that bad. Poor sleep. I remember the first time I did my temps for Jared, and we were actually camping, and you were like, oh. You're like, well, hopefully we can get that up. And so I know the difference of how it feels like to be in a body that wakes up at 96.6 and a body that wakes up at 98. And a body that doesn't feel that it's not possible to recover from these injuries, that you can continue to get strong, you can learn new skills, you can do these things, and you can do it in a way that's completely sustainable. So we have also like this is, I think, just a nice framework to think about how you can start looking at tools to be or to have a health first approach. So Jed, what are the sorts of profiles, or what does it look like when you don't have a health first approach? What do you see from the people you work with?
That's a great question. I think there's opposite ends of the spectrum. So there's people who are not into fitness and who are just like living life and barely getting by. And that's one type of person. And then I see also the other kind of person, which is going to be your maybe athlete or person who's addicted to the gym. And maybe they're focused on how they look more than how they feel. And that's a whole other one. But, generally it's people who are not sleeping well, who have taken on way more than they can handle. Their digestion is off. Their every day feels like they're just barely keeping their head above water. And they might not even recognize that that's their pattern. And they're just trying to get by.
And how does that manifest in their body?
Oh, well, all kinds of pain, digestive issues, constipation, anxiety, feeling anxious, having no energy and having to rely on, I have one person who I'm in the midst of working with was on almost 6 or 7 espressos through the course of a day just to keep going. And even that, when you can have a coffee and go to bed, something is out of balance. And so we get in these patterns. And, what's interesting about health is it's not like I eat, I don't know, like let's say a cake and I gain 20 pounds. You don't have the direct impact that makes you say, oh, this isn't working. It's gradual over time. So it's like the frog in the pot of boiling water. If the water's hot, the frog will jump in and jump out. But when it starts cool and it slowly heats up over time, the frog will just stay in till he dies, right? And so like that's kind of how people are. We start very small, little things, and over 10 years, now you're looking and you're like, dang, and you don't even know how you got there. You don't know how you're going to get out of it. And if you don't address it, it's just going to get worse over time.
Yeah. So one of the things I talk about a lot is that I want people to find their own movement culture. I want them to have joy in how they move, because we're told you need to, like, I really don't like the word exercise. I did a kind of post on social media a while ago to say, like, what does the word exercise or like conjure up for you? And it was kind of like discipline, work, There was never kind of joy or kind of self-development or this kind of how do we move through the world, and how we move through the world is, a combination of mind, body, heart, spirit, everything's connected. You cannot separate any of these things. Our mind will influence everything in our body will influence our mind. There's a constant dialogue. There's no one-way street for anything. And there's also, as we talk about as well, like health is not a destination.
It's a journey for sure.
Always, because everything is changing all the time. And our ability to change with those changes is something where Movement Snacks, having this kind of 10-minute go-to, is going to allow you to have a moment to go like, hey, is this the day? Maybe you've scheduled 40 minutes for movement and you do your 10 minutes, or even within the first minute or 3 minutes, you're like, I just want to lie down and sleep. It's like, great, just lie on the floor and breathe. Maybe that's exactly what you need to do today. Maybe just a walk is what you need to do. Or you start, and then I quite often, I'll start and then I'm like, oh, I feel way better than I thought. Like, oh, this is good. And then before I know it, like I'm an hour and a half down the rabbit hole of kettlebells and handstands and parkour and walking and mobility. Another day, it's like, I'm just doing some rocking, I'm doing some rolling, I'm doing some walking, I'm doing some groundwork, and feeling good within it. So this kind of idea of finding joy in the movement that you're doing allows people, I think, to also explore what is going to work for them. So joy in movement for some people could be I love the hard thing. I like it loud. I like it noisy. I need to be in a group. Whereas for other people, I'm an introvert. I prefer to be outside in nature, barefoot, sometimes with a couple of friends. I can step into big events, but I also kind of always need my quiet time, and kind of alone time just to balance. So a lot of people enjoy that kind of suffering. They want to feel like, oh, where are my calluses? Or like, I want to feel the sweat, or I want to feel this. And we're all very individual in how we find our joy with that and how we access that. But then maybe like, do we overdo it sometimes as well?
Yeah, I think it's a great point. I think, when you look at, first, I think workouts or working out or exercise is a man-made concept. Like, this is something that we created because we don't hunt and gather and we have lazy lifestyles. So we created this aspect of like, I'm going to train for my hour. And, we, from Katie Bowman's stuff, and like she had a statistic that was like, a person who works out 1 hour a day, 7 days a week, is really only so much more active than a person who doesn't. And it was like a staggering statistic where like, instead of approaching life as like, I'm going to go do my workout, I look at my son, who's my teacher, who's like, he's playful, he's joyful, he has access to everything he needs in his body. There's nothing that he can't do at 6 that he needs to do. You know what I mean? And he's never been in a gym. He's never done a CrossFit WOD. He's never pushed himself. He goes until he can't, then he relaxes until he can. It's like, it's a very simple thing. And I think it's what works, and trying to shift people into that creativity. Because you look at any gym and like, yeah, they're not happy. No one's smiling and having a good time at the gym. Like, they're there to work, and one thing I've always been obsessed with is this idea of diminishing return. Like, how much do I need to push myself with strength or with running or with whatever, to where I am now on the way down in a decline? Like, I only need so much strength to do a pull up, to climb a rock, but I don't need to be adding so much more that then I get injured or I overtrain. And then the other thing is, like we were talking about energy wise, like if you need caffeine to go work out, you probably shouldn't be working out. Like
I agree.
those
Yeah.
kinds of things I think are just important to think about. So shifting that to what we talk about with movement snacks, I think is just a really easy approach for most people. And if you're someone who trains hard, then it's a way to bring balance. Because I remember when I was 18 and 19, I didn't have time for warm-ups. I didn't have time for cool down and stretches and mobility. Like, I went in, I hit the gym, I got my lifts because that was where the juice was, and I left. And I can remember that over time, even as young as I was, like, that created imbalances and problems in my body. And so to be able to have this at 10 minutes a day, I think gives people another tool in their toolbox,
Definitely. And this idea of being 360 degrees strong, because if you're training in a linear way, okay, that takes care of this activity that you love doing. So recently I've been working with quite a few runners, a few cyclists, and like their hips are like, like they're really good at this. And they love that. And that's their thing. And I'm never going to say to someone, don't do the thing you love. I'm just saying, just add in a sprinkle of this, add in a little bit of this. And that's going to carry over. So one client I was working with, Sonia, she's a professional cycling coach. She has a personal trainer who takes care of her strength training in the gym. She's on top of things. She's got it nailed. However, she came and she worked through my course, my 12-week course. She did her movement snacks every day. Within 3 days, she felt her body change. She woke up with no back pain. She could then let her hands go on the bike and be completely imbalanced. Her balance changed. It crossed over into all of her lifting in the gym. It changed her cycling performance. It made her happier. It gave her less anxiety. She felt joy in the times when she was doing her movement snacks. So, and I just had a message from a client this morning, like she's just 2 weeks into it. And she was like, and she's a very strong lady. She's amazing. And she's been through bodybuilding, through lifting, like she's a powerhouse. and she's in pain. And she doesn't have a health first approach. And what her message was today was that she said she'd forgotten what it felt like to let your body move in a kind of more free and playful way, how it wants to move, because she'd been training in such a linear fashion for so long. And that I think there's this place for movement that a lot of people have forgotten, that movement should make you happy.
Yeah.
And it's not just to be functional. So I can have so many examples of stories, especially with the very elite parkour athletes when I was filming them. So we would go out and I would be shooting them, filming them for an afternoon or for a commercial or something. And they would literally be like jumping rooftops, doing like the big spectacle stuff. And then on the way back to get the train home, like they would kind of roll their ankle off the pavement. And it would be like, or they would kind of slip and fall or something, because they were kind of so they were so depleted from, like, their nervous system was so fried from that thing. And this can happen to all of us. And like those athletes are just like, they've kind of moved the baseline of and the benchmark of what we thought it was possible for the human body to do. So I'm not bashing any. I think parkour athletes are just phenomenal and amazing and inspiring. But it's just to say that everything kind of can be out of balance sometimes. So these rotations, so our brain and body thrive on variety all the time. So we should be happier to move. And these movement snacks will cross over. There's no diminishing. It's not kind of like, well, I want you to do less of the thing you love doing. It's just add in this. And there is a positive domino effect. So I just want to go into our kind of 4 Bs, which are this kind of rule of 4 Bs, which coincide and really bring where movement snacks and health first kind of come together. Because I'm not into promoting movements that are going to deplete someone's health. I've had clients come and want to work with me, and their strong resting was like, it just didn't exist. I had one client who she kind of basically wasn't really eating. So I said, I can't work with you. Like, if your capacity to recover isn't there and you're not willing to kind of go there. And then she changed and we've been working and she's doing amazing, which is wonderful. So our 4 Bs are breath work, balance, barefoot, and breakfast. So I want to kind of break those down. And also, as you're listening to this, please feel free to write in the chat and we'll kind of jump in with any of that. So breath work. Is it just like the new fancy thing in town? What's happening with breath work? Because you've been around a lot of different kind of breath works for a long time.
Yeah.
So share a little bit about that.
Yeah. So for me, I had this, I started in fitness and learning about the body and learning about, food and nutrition and digestion. And so I had this component, and then I went, because we have a crazy friend in common who invited me to go to stay with Wim Hof for 10 days in Poland and learn about breath work and do hyperventilation and to understand. And so I spent a lot of time learning different aspects of breath work. And it's something that I think it's like an ancient thing that we have, that we lost touch and things cycle through. And now there's been this reinvigoration of breath work because of Wim Hof and Peter McEwen and nose breathing and all the different stuff that's going on. And the way I look at it is that people are always talking about their metabolism, or they're talking about their health and their fitness. But the thing that runs all of it is nervous system. Like, that's the thing that controls everything. And for me, what I found is that there's 3 ways to regulate your nervous system. It's breath work, it's food, and it's play, or finding support or joy or whatever you want to call it. So these 3 ways do it. So breath work is a foundational piece that we both have played with. And I think we both agree that nose breathing is probably what most people need the most right now. And not just nose, but nose and diaphragm breathing instead of chest breathing and mouth breathing. So that's my feel about it. What do you think?
I mean, for me, breath work is the movement skill that nobody practices. So we're all effective at breathing. We're alive. It's all happening anyway, all day, every day. But a lot of people aren't breathing in a way that is fueling them well, because when you are the mouth breather, do you remember? I mean, we don't have to go to the extreme of kind of Edward Monk's The Scream of like kind of thing. But if you think about when people are kind of shocked, or what do? They're like, oh. And there's this like gaping mouth openness. And this movement skill is a driver of all your other movement skills. And it's a primary movement skill. And we're all born nose breathers.
Mm-hmm.
You know, there's always a rare exception. I know. But general rule of thumb, we're all born nose breathers. And as we kind of go through life, either through sickness or a traumatic event or something, you know, even if like, you know, you get a cold or you're very congested, and maybe at some point someone didn't recover their nose breathing. And then that kind of sets that pattern and people have normalized it. And as Jared said, the nervous system is driving the show. So within movement snacks, the primary thing we always recommend and what we do and what we train people in is the first part of your movement snacks is breath work. And so can you talk a little bit about the nervous system and fight or flight, and what happens if you're not a nose breather?
Ooh. Okay. So
what would that profile be like? Give a kind of like rundown of like, oh, classic mouth breather.
well, just a quick like breakdown is like we have a nervous system, and then that nervous system has a branch. So you're either in rest and digest or fight or flight. Your body operates in two very different, distinct ways when you're in one or the other. When you're in rest and digest, you can imagine like laying on the beach and like relaxing, and the body's resting, and you're feeling the breeze, and you're in touch, and you're calm. And then the other one would be like maybe a police pulls you over to give you a ticket, and you can feel that adrenaline, or you drank too much coffee, and that has another feeling. You can feel the blood goes away from the organs and into the extremities, because fight or flight has been a survival mechanism that we use to get out of danger. And so it's, you know, fight, flight, and freeze. Those are three, and there's another one or two, but those are the main things that our body goes into. So it gets kind of stuck. And you can send your body signals based on your breath. So if I breathe through my nose, I tell my body I'm safe. I'm completely.
Oh, sorry, are you back? I clicked the wrong one.
Yes. If I breathe through my nose, can you hear me okay?
Yeah, I've just Christina's just joined in, and I'm trying to mute her just so that boom. Okay.
So we have the nose breathing, and then we have the mouth breathing, which is another aspect. And when we mouth breathe, so imagine like I go and I run wind sprints. When I'm done, I'm probably well, that's a hyperventilation. That's what people have when they're under extreme stress. So when you mouth breathe, you're basically telling your body there's a threat in my environment, and your body will respond to that by putting you in fight or flight. So we want to be in this diaphragmatic, nose breathing, mouth closed a majority of the time. And most people don't do that. And one thing that we talk a lot about in our movement snacks training is how to use your breath work to guide your practice, and using it as a stopper for when you know you went too far. And so these guidelines are really important, because the more that you can do that, the more it will help you in life without taking you over the edge. And so, you know, there's been studies of people who mouth breathe who have issues with their teeth, issues with their jaw, their face shape changes. There's all these things that happen. You have more anxiety, you have more stress. So nose breathing is a fundamental part. And having one of my best friends be a breath worker, I understand that there are places for mouth breathing. You know, if you're going to ignite a life-changing experience, or you want to like deal with some deep work. But for most of the time, I feel like that nose breath is where we want to be.
Definitely. And I'm a big kind of believer in this idea that the more relaxed you are, the stronger you are. Because to stay in this fight or flight, high tension, wired, stuck feeling is exhausting and a depletion of energy, and that we should be there for just very short amounts of time. So if I'm sitting here and then suddenly, my dog Pax just suddenly like runs off or does something, I just need to be able to be like 0 to hero. I need to be able to be like, and I'll do that. I won't be like, la, 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 but I also want to be able to downregulate afterwards. I want to be spending the majority of my time in this feeling of ease, where I have access to my fitness because I'm not depleting it in my downtime. Whereas a lot of people that are we see are sort of stuck in this downtime, tired and wired cycle that is really hard to get out of. So the first kind of thing, one of these main tools that we both use is breath work. So, which is why it's part of your movement snacks for everybody. So the second B is balance. And this is literally and metaphorically. So from the movement perspective, all the movements we do, we're always in or out of balance at some point. We're always moving through a position of balance, whether it's how you walk, how you get up and down from the ground, how you run, how you lift. I've seen people in gyms and it's like, oh, they'd be able to snatch so much more if they just train balance. And you can see people lose their balance because unless you're doing something like gymnastics, ice skating, slacklining, parkour, people are not training their balance. And there are some movement skills that take a long time. Like no one's going to get a muscle up from zero in a short amount of time, or climbing skills and things like that. Balance, you can improve with the right guidance, generally like within 10 minutes. And then you practice that within 1 week, 2 weeks. It's really incredible. So you can get some really quick gains and they will cross over into everything else you're doing. And you also then train the sense that your body knows where it is in the world. So proprioception of, our body, when we know where it is, it feels safe. It's this, again, it's kind of like taking inventory. It's being informed of things. And then we go to this metaphorical sense of the word balance of, are you in balance? Are you out of balance? Your energy in, your energy out. So Jared, I know you're very eloquent when you talk about this because we're dealing a lot with people who are just kind of running on empty.
Yeah, first I want to say to that point, I've seen a lot of friends in the gym injure themselves doing like heavy back squats and heavy deadlifts and like really pushing themselves. And I've spent a lot of time doing back squats and deadlifts. And one of the things that I noticed, and I was back then I was very surprised, is that when I was doing some more parkour training and working on rails and working on balancing and spending time focused on that, my legs were actually stronger and had more power than from all the years I did deadlifts and back squats. And so we don't necessarily have to do those things to get strength, and that balance can be a big part of that. And then you're right, it's what I see mostly and what I work with people most of the time on is balance in their life because they don't have any. And also I think we live in a culture that's created kind of like, the Gary V's and the Tony Robbins of like hustling and grinding and pushing and like, you got to keep going. And if you're not busy every second of the day, you're lazy. And like this culture has created a lot of hardship for people. And so they don't have balance in the life. And when I start to work with somebody with nutrition, I always tell them like, if your plate is full, if you put food on every aspect of your plate, where are you going to be able to put this information that I'm going to give you? You have no time for it. So it's kind of helping people to reassess what's important, how to say no, how to carve out priorities, because without that balance, you're just out of sorts and you're constantly in that state of fight or flight that we talked about.
Definitely. And so everything kind of, I think if you follow Jared and I, you'll kind of know, or you're already on board with the idea that, so everything is connected. So you can't just be doing like your movement snacks. So for me, like I have the MAP system. So it's about your movement snacks. It's about an age positive mindset. It's about play and parkour, this idea of how to overcome obstacles. And it's about strong resting. And it's a constant feedback loop of these interconnections of everything. So you can't just do nutrition and then have your emotions and your mindset be talking shit to you all day long and think, oh, well, everything's going to change, because there is no separation in all of these things. And when we bring balance into it, like figuratively, metaphorically, you know, how you balance your plate, how do you balance the needs of others and yourself? How do you literally balance your body in the shapes and the moves that you're doing every day? If you had to make a clay sculpture of what your body looked like at the end of the day, like, do you look like a chair? Chair-shaped people break really easily, but life demands a lot of chair sitting for a lot of people, whether it's the car or the office or something. So how do you offset that? Where are you trying to bring it back into balance? And what balance is for you may look completely different than what it is for somebody else. So, you know, we don't want to get our kind of monkey mind comparisonitis on charge as well and go, well, they're doing that. And it's like, well, yeah, they don't have kids and they sleep all night. But like, you have these responsibilities and you need to do this. So what your balance looks like and the recipe for you and your roadmap and blueprint may be slightly different. So the third B is,
and I just want to say before you jump from that is that Gabor Mate talks about how you can't separate a person from their environment. You can't separate the mind from the body. And he says that we are a combination of everything we've experienced from conception until now. And when most people are training or looking at following a meal plan or dieting or doing whatever, they're caught in this like kind of small scope of what is happening right now without taking into consideration how they got to that point and all the years of the things that they've been through. So in context of balance, I think it's important to reflect on everything you've been to where you are now.
100%. And I always say that, you know, your training doesn't exist in a vacuum. The person that does the training or the person who didn't sleep is still the person who's turning up at training. The person who maybe, I don't know, ate the fast food and didn't do well with it, who then thinks, oh, well, I'll just run 2 miles today. And that kind of balances it out. And it's like, no.
Yeah.
It kind of, it just doesn't work like that on any level. But if you just kind of went with the kind of flow of mainstream thinking, that you may kind of think that, like the reality for me in my journey was like, seriously, you can't exercise out a bad diet? Shit, that's really inconvenient to my thinking. Because I would love to eat all these cakes and all this stuff. Oh, but you're telling me I shouldn't maybe eat quite so much of that? but I train really hard. Yeah, it does. It's still not going to work. It's not in balance. So yes, this idea of there is no separation with the environment. And that's kind of a beautiful segue into why I'm such a big believer in being barefoot.
Yes.
So if you went through life wearing big mitten, like oven gloves, do you think you would have strong hands? No, you will say, that would be crazy.
You know, for me, there was this, I spent so many years playing basketball. Like that was what I did. And I would always get the new Jordans, always play basketball with my friends, barely ever take my shoes off unless I was going to bed. And when I started to get into movement training and outdoor natural training, my feet were like turned out like this from all the years that I squished my toes together. And it's been a long time reconnecting and having to adjust and to see how that has shaped my movement patterns over the years as well.
Definitely. So I had a similar thing. I had kind of skinny feet, so I always had really narrow shoes. So my toes were kind of like that. And now they're like, oh, we can breathe. We've got space now. So I also found when I started, so I had bilateral Achilles tendonitis. So I had both Achilles on both feet were like destroyed. I spent 3 years wearing Nike Airs with personalized orthotics inside of them. So I was shod. I had these like coffins on my feet. And luckily for me, I had a chance encounter with a friend who was learning how to be a rolfer. So this is kind of the manipulation of your fascia and the connective tissue. And with probably the most excruciating 30 minutes of body work of my life, I was like, my palms were sweating. I was swearing at him. And he was just going, it's all right, mate, push through. It's all right. It's all right. Just like, that kind of gave me the reset to never put my foot in those things again. And then I began the journey of reconnecting and strengthening my feet, repositioning them. And what I also feel is this grounding. So if I'm wearing shoes all day, I just have a different emotional sense of my being than when I can be without shoes. So shoes are great for protecting our feet from things like cold, from sticky shit. From yesterday, I was gardening at a friend's house and there's loads of spiky thorns and things. And even with shoes on, occasionally there was a like, and like it felt like a nail like going through your foot. So I'm not in some, unrealistic perspective of like, oh, come on, let's all be hippies and throw our shoes away. But when you're going through life with a kind of heel-toe ratio, your body thinks you're injured. And there's a really simple test you can do. You need another person to do this. And I was thinking we should actually make a video of this when we're together. And you can, and I do this at workshops, and it's kind of a party trick, but it really brings the issue home. So if you just stood up barefoot and you put your arm out and you get someone to push down on your arm, like you're holding it and you're going to push, and it's like, okay, you can feel that strength. Then I want you to take one of your shoes, and even if there's only a slight heel toe, I want you to put that with it, even if it's this much, underneath your heel. You can do it on one foot or on both of your feet. And I want you to test this same thing. And I'll tell you what'll happen. It'll go like, and people go like, what do you do? Hang on, do it again, do it again. I'm like, what happened? Come on, like push, like, come on, like you had that strength. Okay, remove it. Let's do it again. And basically, our feet tell our brain where we are. And at the same time, we're incredibly adaptable. I know I've seen people in Thailand do massive rail precision. So this is jumping from like one skinny rail to another rail in flip-flops. I've seen people move and land on things wearing socks, where you'd be like, that is the last thing in the world that you ever want is a slippery thing. So we are adaptive and we are amazing. But what I'm saying is you want to connect to your environment. You want to have this tactile communication, this conversation about the world around you. And spending more time barefoot is going to give you happier ankles, stronger feet, happier hips, happier back, happier neck, and a sense of calm. So if you don't believe me, I want you to just kind of play with that. So I'm just keeping an eye on the time. So I want to go to our final thing of the 4 B's. Breakfast. It's non-negotiable. Over to you, Jared. Say why.
It's one of our 4 B's because I think it brings balance to the body. I think there's a lot of people talking about intermittent fasting. There's a lot of people talking about keto. There's a lot of buzzes that are going around in the health and wellness and fitness space. And I work with people who are injured and dealing with digestive issues and out of balance, and who are struggling to find consistency in their day and in their life. And what I found is that when you start your day with breakfast, it's a way to ground your body. It's a way to nourish your body and to support it. And I'll just make this really simple, is that I would never get in my car and drive from LA to San Diego on a quarter tank of gas. And I know
how much does it normally take?
Oh, at least a full tank.
Okay, just for people who don't know the geography.
Okay, yeah, it's a long way to go. I would never get there on a quarter tank. And you're asking your body to do that every day when you get up and you don't eat breakfast. And not to mention, one of the biggest internal stresses that our body deals with is balanced blood sugar. And so when the blood sugar drops, we have alarm bells that go off that stimulate adrenaline, which then release your fat to look for another source of energy. And so if I'm trying to get somebody to heal and to feel well, I don't want them running on their adrenaline because, again, they're in fight or flight. Their body senses a threat and mechanisms shut down for protection. So, like, breakfast is a very easy way to start your day and have nourishment coming in to support whatever you're going to do that day. And what I've seen from a lot of people who come to me from intermittent fasting and from doing keto and from doing all those things is those things last for a little while. And then there's always a point like diminishing return where their body starts to break down. And so this is a key point that I teach to help somebody get back into balance. Because if you're having cravings, if you're, like maybe you're fasting in the morning, but then going for sugar, or maybe you're crashing later in the day, or there's all these ways that our body shows us that what you're doing isn't working. And so balanced breakfast to support your body for the win.
Definitely, definitely. So, Jared, how can people find out more about what you do and what you have to offer?
Oh, thank you, Julie. They can find me on Instagram or Facebook under my name, Jared Tavasolian. Mosin Health is my company. And if you found any of this information useful or intriguing and you'd like to have another conversation, I'll be sending you an email for the possibility to do a breakout call or a breakthrough call. And we can talk about what's going on and what maybe is holding you back. And so that is the best way to reach me, or Mosin Health, MOHSEN health.com.
Definitely. And so the final thing we kind of haven't touched on is, so we have movement snacks. We have this health first approach, and there's one thing missing. So people may be like, okay, well, I've got it. I'm on board. I'm going to do the movement snacks. I'm going to do my 4 Bs. And here's the crutch. Only 5% of the population, based on all the kind of statistics that there are from people who train, people who try to do weight loss, only 5% of people do it on their own. And this is why, so I invest a huge amount of money each month in my coaches, like people who are my coaches. So I completely believe in coaching. And I've also been one of those people who I thought I was the 5% because I'm resilient, I'm hard, I can push through, I have discipline, I can do all of those things. And what ended up happening is I only did, as soon as I stopped working with my coach, but I had all the information, I only did like 30%. And you need to do kind of more than the 30%. So yeah, coaching for a lot of people is the one key thing where we have to admit that support and accountability are game changers. Because right now, there's no shortage of knowledge. Maybe how we join the dots together for you on these different subjects is different. So I'd really just.
Yeah, I think I feel like one of the biggest things that I see now is because of all the podcasts and because of all the videos and YouTube stuff, like there is no shortage of information. Everyone knows what to do, kind of, or has so much intellectual knowledge about what's going on. But I learned that if you know it and you don't do it, you still don't know it. And that's like a big one, because you can be drunk on information, but if you're not putting anything into practice, it really doesn't matter. And I find one of the things that I do for a lot of my clients is to keep them on track, because they might be following 8 different coaches on Instagram and 10 on Facebook and reading magazines, and they're always like looking for info. And my job is just to keep them on a straight line so that they stay on a path, because otherwise it's very easy to have squirrel mind where they're just like, yeah, and nothing gets done. They end up staying in the same spot, going nowhere. And so I think as for me also, I always hire coaches because it's what I think helps us move the needle.
Definitely. And for me, it's very efficient. It's just, it gets it done. It's time efficient. You're guided and you're supported. And a lot of people, especially because it's kind of like our approach is almost against the grain of like, because we're saying, hey, we don't want you to push through. We want you to take inventory. We want you to be healthy in your mind and your body. We think it's completely not acceptable to have pains and aches. We like, it's because there are methods that we have, and everyone's at a different starting point, and there is no cookie cutter approach, because you are individual, you're bio individual, you're the only one living your story. And maybe also you're a kind of, you're like us, you're the misfits and mavericks kind of in your own little world of like, well, no one else wants to really go and climb trees with me, Julie, or everyone else thinks like I shouldn't, I should, if I want to change my body composition, I just need to eat less. And it's kind of different. So I just want to make sure before we run out of time, so we're going a little bit over. Anyone who's on the live, do you have any questions? If you'd like to write them in the chat, or if you'd like to unmute, go ahead. And if you're on the replay, please reach out. You will be receiving the replay link for everyone on here, and the opportunity for a call, a free discovery call with Jared. You can also have a free call with me. And next week, starting on Monday, I'm running a 4-day movement snacks challenge. So you can kind of see and implement some of these things, because like we said, it can't just be intellectual knowledge. The value is in the implementation and the continuity of that implementation. So any thoughts or questions for anyone who's still here on the live? Let me know. And if not, final words, Jared, what are your... So Tammy says, yeah, that's what I was doing, trying a little bit of everything, which was then too much. Yeah. So, and Tammy's doing great. Tammy's just done my 12-week, and now we're working together for the next year. And one of the things she shared that she was happy for me to put on social media was she described my course at one point as do less, eat more, be happy.
That's great. That's a t-shirt.
Yeah, that's so I'm very happy and very excited about. So I don't know if you can see the question there. She says, how quickly is body temp responsive to plus or negative changes?
Well, so it's like when I'm working with someone, there's a baseline. So that baseline is pretty kind of standard, and you can see when you eat how it fluctuates a little bit during the day, which is a good sign. And then it takes a while for the body to kind of build a foundation and then change over time. So yeah, it takes time.
It's a process. And as you say, like sometimes, our journey we didn't get there overnight. So I'd been kind of in a sort of paleo-esque, no breakfast, or kind of 3 hours later, brunch, no breakfast mode for about 7-8 years, when I started working with you and kind of shifted. Yeah. And then it took probably 6 months to a year to kind of consistency.
Yeah.
And and making changes and being guided and working, and then, changing how we move, how we think, how we feel, to be
better. The other thing I think is important is like when someone does a weight loss program, they might get results. Like they might lose 10 to 20 pounds in that 3-month period, or in that 1-month period, or whatever it is. And that's great. But then if they gain it back, or gain back more in a 6-month period, did it really work?
I'd say not.
Yeah, I would say not too. And that's the thing is we're focused on these quick fixes and these gimmicks and things that we need a lot of willpower and a lot of determination and a lot of self-discipline to do. But that's not reality, and that's not life. So even though if we do it and we get the result, if it comes back and it doesn't serve us long-term, then it never really worked. And most people will keep trying to go back to the same thing that doesn't work long-term. So.
Definitely. Well, thank you so much, Jared. Thank you for your time today. And thank you if you're on the replay, you've made it to the end. And yeah, there's an invitation to have a free discovery call with Jared, and anything that we've talked about today, you can reach out to me, you can book a call as well. And so thank you for joining us, and follow us, social media, email, you know the drill. It's all out there. It's how you found us. It's how you're on here. So stay well. Remember, keep everything in balance. Close your mouth, calm your nervous system, enjoy your breakfast tomorrow morning, and maybe take your shoes off and see how that feels. And enjoy your movement snacks. It doesn't have to be all or nothing. So any final things?
No, you said it beautifully. Thank you, Julie.
Okay, thank you everyone. Enjoy. Bye-bye.